Do you think it's too late to try stand up comedy? Well, it's not. You have plenty of time and plenty of time to grow your stand up comedy career, even if you're 50. Today, I interviewed Jay Donaldson, who didn't start performing stand up until age 50 and is now doing shows all over the place. Listen in. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Hello, Late Starters. It's your host, Andrea Vall, and I am here with comedian Jay Donaldson, fellow Denver comedian here. And we are going to dive into getting started in comedy in your 40s, 50s, beyond. You started when you were 50, 50-ish, right?
Right around 50, yep.
Yeah, awesome. Well, welcome, Jay.
Oh, welcome, it's good to be here.
So cool. So I love when people have started comedy later because I think like there's so many people I run into that are like, oh, if they find out I do stand up, they're like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to try that or whatever. And so I'm always excited when people dive in and get started. And you have really like dove in a big way recently.
Yes, yeah, I definitely did. I've always wanted to do this, and then life happens and you look back and you spent 30 years paying down a mortgage and cars and you just, not happy with what that happened. My kids went off to school and they both went off to college. And so then my wife and I just kind of semi-empty nesters,
Yeah.
uh, just could do what we wanted to do. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and they say,
Right.
what is the saying? It's like, best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Second best time is today. So
Exactly.
it's like I'm
Just
gonna
do
dive
it.
in. I'm gonna go all in and just do it.
Right, right, and I loved your, story. Well, I don't love it because it's somewhat painful,
Yeah.
but tell us about, like, how you when you first did comedy.
Yeah. So when I first did comedy, and exactly what you said, went in like I'm gonna go do this. My wife was like, "Yeah, you should try it." I did an open mic. Well, actually, technically, it wasn't an open mic. It was something called "The Jokes on You," and they pair you up with a actual seasoned comedian who's does it like a more of a full time thing. They give you some tips right before you go up, and then you do 3 minutes. And I
Uh-huh.
did that, and I killed, and I had the best time. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to do this every day for the rest of my life, forever. And that was right before COVID hit.
Yeah.
I did it in February of 2020, and then, like, literally 2 weeks away from when everything got shut down for about a
Oh,
year and a half. I
yeah.
couldn't do anything for a year and a
Yeah.
half. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so terrible, so terrible. I actually did a bunch of Zoom comedy. I don't know if you did that, but that was terrible. Wow, that was so bad.
I could imagine, yeah.
Was so bad, and but I kind of learned throughout the way, and Nancy Norton had a great idea. She had her own little laugh track, and she'd be like, "Oh, that was funny. I'm gonna give myself a laugh," and and that actually worked. But I did it all kinds of different ways, like with the sound off, people muted, unmuted. It was just terrible all the time. And the funny thing is, I did it with another comedian friend of mine who we do comedy a lot, and she's like, "Yeah, I never want to do that again."
So many people said that to me. They're like, "So did you do online?" I'm like, "I had one set that I did for 3
Yeah,
minutes." Like, I
yeah,
didn't have any exposure to the world with that. I didn't know anything
right,
about it, and I'm really glad I didn't, for 2 reasons.
yeah.
One,
Oh,
everybody else I've talked to was just like you. They say how they hated it, they would never wanna
so
do it
bad,
again. And
so
then
bad.
the other side of it is I feel that there would be so much content, a year and a half worth of content of me just I'd look back and just be cringe, like, what was I doing? Because I
I
didn't know
know.
anything, you know?
Yeah, it
Couldn't
would
even talk
convince you to
about
like
audience. Yeah, and that's
convince you to get out of comedy, right? After
yeah,
that.
yeah, probably would've, right.
So awesome. So that's I love this story. So talk a little bit about like just what even prompted you to get started? Did have people told you you're funny? What had that what was that first reason of like, I think I'll try it.
Yeah, I think, well, I've always wanted to do it, I
Yeah.
always wanted to do comedy, and I was a huge fan growing up, and I've went to so many, I've seen so many comedians in person, just
Hmm.
growing up, like,
Hmm.
everybody from, like, Sam Kinison to, Bobcat Goldthwait to, like, Jerry Seinfeld to, like, stand-ups, like, and
Yeah.
then just even the local scenes, I'd go to those, and then that's carried on to my adult life. Like, I've
No
seen John
problem.
Mulaney and stuff, and it's like, I just loved it. And then, what
Yeah.
prompted me, I think, was my wife was like, "Why don't you do it?" And then,
Yeah.
you feel like the excuses all my life, the excuse had been kind of, it just seems like that's something I would need to really work hard at and train for, and I just didn't feel like I deserved to try it even as a
Mm,
younger person. And then as
mhm.
an older person, it's like, okay, but if not now, when? If I don't try
Right.
it, if I don't do it, then why not? So I think it prompted me was like my wife helping, saying, "Get out there, do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then if you
Yep.
hate it, then fine, then you could say you hate it." you
Yeah.
know? But you
Yeah.
did it because you knew you didn't like it, and that's why you stopped.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, I love that, like, it's not a self-limiting belief that's stopping you, it's just that point you've tried it and it's a choice. Talk a little bit about what it was like what it's been like getting started later. Now you've since had a class in or have you taken any classes
I
since
did.
you
Yeah, yeah,
started? Yeah,
I took 2, mainly because and I'll tell you this, I could totally respect people that would go, "Oh, if you have to take a class, then you don't have what it takes to be a comedian." Like, people will say that, and I could respect that, but that's fine, but the reality for me was, I don't have time to mess around.
right,
No, I'm 50. I wanna if I know that there's some blocking and tackling things I could learn over the course of a year, fine. Can I pay somebody money, though, to say, "By the way, move the mic stand when you get up there to the side." It's a
yeah,
rookie thing to not do that. Also,
mhm,
don't be kicking the cord and walking around, have some focus.
yeah,
Also, like, just structure, and then even joke
yep,
structure, talking about, like, having a premise, or
yeah,
what are chunks, what are bits, all that kind
yeah,
of stuff. How to build a set. Like, it's like I learned so much in the first class. I was like, I wanna do another class because I did. There's like a 101 and I did a 201. And that one was talking a lot more about like identity and personality and, like, stage presence. The first one was just like, hey, here's how to really structure this, and this has
right,
worked for years. Try
right,
this approach and it'll help you.
yeah.
And I felt like
Yeah.
I think that's, if I could credit one thing for me getting as fast forwarded as possible, it would be the class. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a huge mistake that some people do make is that they, because it can move you so much faster. You can grow so quickly, and like you said, I feel like now you wanna get as good as fast as possible so you can have, so much more fun and really grow and push the envelope. I've had a comedy coach for years, and, uh, and I think it's a hugely important thing to just have someone challenging you, to, write better or structure your sets better, so that's great. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, not only the class, but I've had 2 professional comedians that I regularly would keep contact with that have been so generous with their time, and they're like, I talk about something, I'm like, "Oh, I was thinking about this," and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you could do that," but, like, honestly, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a huge thing where everybody was doing that, just so and then
Yeah,
like, I wouldn't have known that, like, that's the only way I
right,
could find that out was through somebody who'd been
right.
there, doing it, and that's a huge thing, by the way, starting when you're, at the age that I was starting, I would say that, number 1, like, throw ego aside, you know? Learn, ask questions, be humble, take it seriously, but there's going to be an age gap. Get over it.
Yeah,
Most of the people that I know in stand up are like 30 or under, and the
yeah,
ones who are my age have been doing it for 20 or 30 years. So
yeah,
everybody respects them, and then they're seasoned and whatnot. So okay, there you go. Now and okay, what are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about it. Get over it. Move on. That's it.
right. Yeah, exactly, exactly, and yeah, it is hard when, you feel like it's hard to feel like a beginner at this stage. I think that's what holds people back a lot of times is they're like, "Oh, I don't wanna, look stupid," or something like that. I'm like, "Who
Yeah.
cares? I love looking stupid. I don't know."
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I have no problem with it either. Right.
So, yeah, and then now, just kinda getting into your journey now, you've been booking a bunch of shows.
Mhm.
Talk about what that's been like.
That's another thing too. I think by being so willing to accept feedback from anybody, talk about it, and then also be vulnerable and just be like, getting feedback, it's helped me connect with folks. And
Mhm.
so I'm the kind of person who has no problem like walking up to somebody that I've seen a number of times. It's like, hey, I've seen you at a lot of open mics. I just thought I'd say hi and introduce myself. And that's
Mhm.
where I've met a lot of great guys, that most of them are on the same level as me. But then
Mhm.
there's other guys who are like literally pro comics that to this day are doing, sets and opening for real big name comics.
Right.
And so, I'll get all sorts of information, but all that, I guess they say what you got to network to get work. I wasn't doing it for that reason. I was doing it to try and learn, but then I'll have somebody say, like, hey, you want to be on the show or do you want to do this thing? Or like I've literally done everything from roast battles to hosting to played an old folks home twice, two different old folks homes. Like they're just like, hey, you're kind of old. Would you like to do an old folks home? Like, sure, why not? And actually, I tell you what, have you ever played an old folks home? They're like 80 years old and they're drinking wine at like 4 p.m. It's like the
Yeah.
best. It's like
Yeah.
it's just, and they ask questions like 5 year olds. They're like, like trying to do comedy, and they're like,
They're, like, raising their hand. No, this is
questions.
not the feed guy, not the Q&A portion here.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome, that's awesome. So, what advice do you have for, like, comics who are looking to, book gigs? Like, 'cause, I mean, that's the big thing is, like, how do we get paying gigs? What's the I mean, has it been networking that has been your biggest thing? Or are you
100%, yeah,
reaching out to people?
100%. I would say that without a doubt, the best way, but I can only speak from my own experience, so
Mhm,
maybe other people watch this and go, "It's not how I do it." I would say that, I've put in for anything that number 1, let's just do the order. Number 1, it's who you know. Like, so, like, if you know somebody that puts on shows or produces, you meet them, like, or
mhm.
talk to them. Let them know you're interested in doing a show. Maybe they
Yeah,
won't let you on, or maybe they just are booked out, but,
yeah,
you just demonstrate an interest and you see what you can get. That's how I've gotten most of my paid gigs is to basically raise my hand and say, "Hey, I'd like to be on your show," in a nice way, in a nice
mhm,
setting, and usually, if I can, I'll do it in person. I prefer
yeah,
to do it that way. So that's number 1, I would say, to do with that. I think the second best way is also to go in to do anything you can that's festivals, contests, whatever. Like I just did Fort's Funniest 2 weeks ago. I didn't make the
mhm,
second round, but 12 comics that night, and 8 of them, I know all 8 of those folks, and they're killing it. They're booked all the time. I mean,
mhm.
I was basically the equivalent of a lightweight going in against just knockout heavyweight hitters.
Yeah,
But it was,
yeah,
but don't be afraid, just do it. So you
right,
do that, you do festivals, you do anything that you can, you submit for stuff. And that helps because now people will see that you're active, you're doing stuff. So that's probably I'd say the second tip I'd give. And then the third thing I'd say is open mics. Everybody that's producing an open mic probably also produces a show someplace
mhm,
that is a non-open mic show. And so I would say that if you have an interest in doing a show, then find out who hosts for it, who produces it.
mhm,
And then if they have an open mic, be respectful. Go to their open mic. If you
yeah,
can, don't be pushy and don't be a jerk, but naturally just try and walk up to them and say, "Hey, hi, I'd like to introduce myself," and see where it goes. And just
yeah,
you know, they're gonna be there. Most of those guys are busy, and most of the and the women who put those shows on, they're gonna be like really very overwhelmed a lot of times. So pick your moment to just kind of stop by, say hi, and then go away.
mhm,
But
yeah,
that's another great way to do it.
yeah,
Support people that are doing things that you want to do too.
yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
a simple process, right?
right, yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so how about everyone always asks this for me as well, I'm sure people ask you, how do you deal with, bombing and not, not doing well on stage? How do you get through that?
Oh, wow. Um, I guess it depends on what it was that I was bombing at the time. I'll bomb at open mics all the time because I'm trying new stuff and I don't care. And
Yeah,
I'm burning fast. So like I will go to open mics and try stuff that I could think it's great. I'm not gonna try anything I don't think is great. But if it's not
right,
happening, like really guys, no problem. Like let's just keep going.
yeah,
So bombing at an open mic for me, I hate it, but I don't care about it. Like that is nothing. Bombing, if you are in a like I've bombed in a couple of places that I wish I hadn't. One, like I was doing a show at a tavern, it's a paid gig, and everybody's eating.
oh, yeah,
And I'll say this: I wouldn't consider a bomb because if you actually watched that one, people would stop and laugh and stuff. But I just felt
yeah,
so awkward. The energy was so distracted, and like
right,
what I mean. It was like
yeah,
so that's tough, and I just do the best to just take the energy I can and try and lift up the crowd and try and turn it around. And if I can't, stay professional. Uh, I'll say was something that I really one of my pet peeves that I get really frustrated with is watching a comic attack a crowd that's not laughing at their stuff.
I can't
And
stand that. It makes me
it makes
crazy.
me it makes me so mad for especially if I haven't gone up yet. I'm like, "You're killing the crowd," and then on top of it, there's people that are I'll literally watch them walking out, and it's like, "Buddy, I haven't even had a chance to go up." Like,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you don't like your set, get off, do better. Like,
yeah,
practice, I practice. If you're not
yeah,
doing it and not everybody's gonna like it. Okay, so there's that. But the bombings that are the worst, I think, is like, the worst one I ever had was at a as a roast battle. I don't know if you
yeah,
want me to get into that one, but I was a guy. Okay, so there's this guy. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a comedian. His name's Alec. He asked me. He's like, "You want to do a roast battle?" I go, "No," because I'm not like a roast
that's
battle
not
kind of guy.
nah, it's not
And
me either.
I will absolutely roast people with comedy, but I'm usually doing it intentionally to be cutting and get away with it in a public place, like because But I don't do that with people I know. And he's like 30, and I'm like, no, no thanks. He goes, well, my buddy Dayton, he's gonna be in Africa, and he was gonna do it with me. And he can't. I'd really like you to go. And so finally, I was like, fine, I did it. And then I did horrible, and I worked really hard because I knew that roast battles aren't something I do. So
Mhm.
this is how bad it was. Like for 2 weeks, I was literally like working on material, running it off of everybody I know, practicing it on a mic at home with an amplifier, like literally doing everything. And then I go and like it was horrible. Like nobody funny, nothing landed. It was a literal worst. And on top of it, do you know what the worst thing is on top of that?
What?
I'm walking to my car and a buddy I drove with, he was like, "Hey, I want to watch this." And so I'm walking to my car afterwards and I'm like, literally, I go, "Steve, there's nothing worse than bombing at a roast battle, man." And as I stepped in it, as I said that, I stepped in human shit.
Oh, no.
Because I was in Denver and there was a homeless encampment and
Oh,
it was right
no.
by the car. And that's my night. Like not only not only did I bomb, but on top of it afterwards had that happen. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear on
That's
that, but
hilarious. That's so
yeah,
horrible.
and that's how I
Oh,
felt the roast battle went.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but
yeah.
what did I do? You were asking, what do you do when you bomb? What I did was I literally went out. I almost wanted to get out of comedy that night. I'm not kidding you. It was I
Mm.
felt so bad. And then I was like, what am I even doing? So the very next night, I never do open mics on the weekend. I found a place called Howie's that Dylan Cantor runs. And so I went out to that on a Saturday and I did an open mic there. And I felt like it went great. It went great. And I just was winging it, just winging the whole thing. Didn't have any material on the way going there. I just like, I'm gonna just make fun of the walls, make fun of the what I just did it. And it
Yeah,
was a great experience. And it's like get on the bike again because if you fall off, you might not want to get back on, and then that
yeah.
will overwhelm you. So I just got back on it the next night. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great advice. It's so true because you just yeah, when you wanna quit, it just helps to remind yourself that that was just a blip, that was an incident. It's not the whole story, all that stuff. So, yeah, I bombed really hard in Wichita one time at an event, and, then I had to drive 7.5 hours home, and I was like it was so I, like, literally was, like, crying the whole way. I was like, "I'm quitting," you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I know that. Yeah, everybody's got that feeling, right? If you haven't, then
Yeah.
you're not doing it right.
Yeah, yeah, you're not putting yourself out there, and that's what it takes is just, like, stretching, pushing, getting out of your comfort zone, and sometimes it's painful, and, luckily, hopefully, there's enough non-painful non-bombs that make up for it, right? It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling when you're just totally crushing and doing great, and crowd loves you, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so, how about, like so you've got a full-time job doing and your kids are how do you balance comedy and work and all that stuff, other things?
Yeah, you make the time. I make the time. I've got a regular writing group that I do every other week. That we have a meeting place. I'm not going to promote it because actually we had it open and then we had so many people coming and going that we kind
Oh,
of made it private. And so we go about every other week where we actually collectively as a group, and usually we'll get around. I don't know, it could be as few as 3 or 4 people, but then maybe up to 10. Like
mhm,
there's a set group of us if we can make it. So I'll do that every other week, and I like that because it gets involvement from other people.
mhm.
And I will try to make it a point to write once a week, and do, maybe up to, I'd probably say that, minimum 20, 30 minutes and then up to
Mhm.
maybe an hour or 2 just for stand up and working on stand up.
Mhm.
But then I've also tried to, if I can, get windows as I'm coming up with stuff. You got to jot it down. You got to capture that moment. You got to
Right.
something that makes you laugh really bad. You got to like, oh, I got to capture that. So I'll send myself a text to myself or an email to myself to make
Yeah.
sure I capture it. Then I'll work that into something. But then I'm also, it's weird. Like I know somebody who approached me and said, "Hey, would you want to work on a screenplay with me for like a feature film?" And so I was like, yeah, that'd be fun. So we've been doing that, and I probably spend about at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a week for the past maybe month and a half working on that. And
Mhm.
that's been a big, huge helpful thing for me because it's a lot of energy. I will laugh until I'm crying working on some of the stuff that I'm doing with that one.
Yeah.
It's just really fun and engaging. So yeah, you got to make the time. Your question was, how do you make the time? How do you find the time? You don't find the time. You'll never find the time. You make the time. You carve it
Yeah.
out. You respect that, and then you make it happen. And then afterwards,
Right.
you keep doing everything else you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too is just respecting that time slot that you blocked out to do for and if you're not respecting it, why not? Like why, really dig down into like what's coming up that's,
Yeah.
is it are you afraid of writing? Are you, in a bad mojo place? What, are you prioritizing things that don't need to be prioritized or whatever? So it is interesting how you can find the time for something that's important to you. So,
Right.
yeah, even if you think you're busy and it can also like, when you're in this flow and this great, great feeling of being aligned with who you are, it can just help everything, I think. All of a sudden everything's kind of fallen into place. Things that used to take longer are going quicker or whatever. Time shows up.
Oh, I tell you what, I feel like when I'm especially like I've been really putting in and leaning forward into it and working really hard at it. I'll find
Mhm.
myself getting resentful sometimes, like if I'm like, oh man, I gotta get out and I got to open mic in like an half an hour and I gotta get out of here, I'll get resentful, like if I'm not working on my comedy or if I'm not, if I feel like I'm getting pressured or conflicted with getting out on time to go to a thing, is even a crappy open mic, I'll be resentful that this is keeping me from that. And I think that's a positive energy in a way because it means that I care so much about it that I
Mhm.
want to keep it going. But the benefit too is stuff that I used to slog on and just hate to do. Like I don't care. Like I know I got comedy later, so that makes my day go better because I feel like even if I'm doing something I don't like, I can make it through that easier because at the end I've got stuff that I do like, and I think that
Yeah.
balance is really healthy and helpful. I would say
Yeah.
without a doubt. And there's so many
Yeah.
things that when you got something bad going on, you're like the first thing you're thinking about is, oh, this is gonna make a good part of good. You know?
I
Yeah, like
know.
this is
It is kinda almost juicy where you're like, "Oh, oh,
yeah,
this is terrible." Like, I broke up with my boyfriend not long ago, and it was not good, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, this could I could use this." You
yeah.
know?
My wa my wife and I were at a restaurant we'd never been to before, and we literally waited. There was nobody in the restaurant. This restaurant seated probably like 50, 60 people. There was nobody there. It was like 12:30 on a weekday.
Uh-huh.
And we waited like 10 minutes and nobody had come up to us. Now, normally we just bounce. We were
Yeah.
talking. Anyways, the short of it is the things that happen. Like
Yeah.
we're waiting for this food. They get the order wrong, and there's only two of us, and all this stuff is happening. And then, like after I'm like, okay, this is just ridiculous. A robot with a cat's face and a child's voice comes out of the kitchen and serves us our food. And
That's so weird.
I was like, give me a piece of paper.
The
Just
most
gonna write
bizarre
this
thing.
down. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is this is for real happening. And this is
That's so
normally it would be
funny.
really frustrating and be like, oh my gosh. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is great. I'm like, I hope more
Yeah.
stuff like this happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, is there a part of you that wishes you would have started comedy earlier or, you know, kind of regrets not getting involved earlier?
It's funny, I've had people ask me that, of course, a lot. Like, they'll say, like, "Do you wish you did it sooner?" And, I think that just is, like, looking back with regret. Like, that's the only
Mhm,
thing that can come out of that. And
mhm,
so, I prefer not to do that. And I don't really spend a lot of time looking back. I think there's a reason that the rear view mirror is so small in a car and the
mhm.
windshield is so big, because
Right,
there's only so good of it, like, to look back and see some things
right.
for needed reasons. But the whole thing is like, that I think my biggest response to it is like, I don't really look back and spend time regretting that I didn't, do it when I was younger. Like, I don't wish that I did it when I was younger. I
Mhm.
just hope that I can keep doing it till I'm much, much older, and so I
Yeah.
look at it that way.
Yeah.
Would I like to? Sure, but I also feel like if I had a shot when I was young and thought I knew everything, I'd probably make a lot of mistakes that aren't easily correctable and wouldn't age
Mhm,
well. I think that I would have made decisions to go for jokes that were popular and fit in and try and, like, do stuff that other people were doing, and I would have been more about that than myself. I don't know, maybe I would have crushed it, maybe it would have been phenomenal, whatever, like, who knows, but I
yeah.
look at what I'm doing now and I know, like, I'm just doing this for me, and I don't have an expectation that I'm gonna be having a next Netflix special, like,
Mhm.
hey,
You
you
never
know
know,
what?
though.
You never
You
know,
never
and
know.
maybe,
Mm,
and if it happens, that's absolutely great, but I'm going from a perspective of my job is to entertain people when I'm up on stage, period,
mhm.
and that's my focus. So as long as I'm doing that, anything else that comes of that, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But my number one job is to make sure people are entertained, and then I feel good about what I'm doing. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's just no way of knowing how it would've gone. Maybe things would've, gone terrible. Maybe I always think that there's a reason we're
yeah,
doing the thing we're doing right now. This is the perfect moment, and it's the right moment, and maybe it would have been the wrong moment earlier. And also, the thing that kills me, and the whole reason I started this podcast, I'm like, people, we have 30, 40, who knows how many years we have. I mean, my
thank you.
God.
Yeah.
My God.
You know what? That's a great point to bring up. Somebody had post. I'm on. That's another thing, by the way, about the networking, embracing online, like getting a
Mhm.
website. Doing social
Yeah.
media. Facebook is not what it used to be for by any means, and Instagram is whole new for me. But like getting out there, and I have a social media presence only for my comedy side, like not for like a
Mm.
public side. And so I've also got like WhatsApps and I don't know. I don't know all the names of them. I'm sorry because I'm
Yeah,
old,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like, but they're chats where everybody uses chats and discussion rooms and things like that. I got this link sent in one of them, and it was posted for the group, and we watched it. It was a lady who started doing comedy when she was like 75, and she's been doing it for 10 years. And my first thought was when I watched it, she's been doing it for 10 years, and she was really, really funny,
Yeah.
really great stuff, and she has material that you can only do if you're around 80 years old. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't. Like one of her jokes was she was like, what's great about dating when you're 80? You don't have to worry about meeting the other person's parents. Like, go you. She's awesome. But my
That's
first thought was, oh my gosh, wait a minute. She started when she's 75 and I'm 50. If I'm 75 when I'm doing what I'm doing
I
today, I've been
know.
doing it for 25 years.
How awesome is that? How
Right?
awesome is
Like
that?
you have no idea. I could be dead
Right.
tomorrow. That'd be the big joke. And I did.
Yeah.
She died in a car accident tomorrow.
Oh, and so what if you did? You would have had, like, this amazing
Had a
experience, and
great run.
I
It was good.
know.
It was good.
Yeah. Exactly. So awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, one thing I always love to ask people as we close out is a favorite quote, inspirational saying, something that keeps you going. So share away with what you've got.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, so I can't I yeah, my inspirational quote, I've had it for probably about 10 years, I would say. And I'll just be open about it. I struggled with life for a little while, drinking and drugs because I was not doing well. I wasn't winning. And so I went through this phase. It was a season and it wasn't great. And as I came out of the season, one of the things that helped prop me up was there's a quote in the Bible. It's Proverbs 24:16, and it says, "When the righteous fall 7 times, they get up 7 times. The wicked stumble when calamity strikes." And basically, it's like, hey man, we all make mistakes. By the way, you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna fail, and stuff is gonna happen. Well, what you choose to do with that is going to make the difference in terms of your trajectory of the rest of your life. And so, if you fall down, you got to get back up. And that's
Yeah.
what I apply to comedy now. I'm very thankful that I'm past what I am past, years ago, and I've been in a great place for about 7 or 8 years, and I hope to be that place for the rest of my life. But the reality is, you can apply that same mentality kind of anything, and I apply it to stand up now. It's like you're gonna
Yeah.
have days when you bomb, and you're gonna have days that you think that you don't think you should be doing this.
Yep.
And when that happens, then you got to make a choice. Either you got to get up and you got to keep going, or you're going to be basically wasting your
Yeah.
opportunities and just floundering around. So
Yeah.
try to pick it up,
Yeah.
do the best I can. Yeah.
I love that. I love that because yeah, that's what it I joke that I'm not the fastest person, but I will outlast people. It's just and
Yeah.
that is what it takes sometimes, it just really is just keep going, keep creating, keep, growing, and I think that's what makes us most alive and is just the joy of being alive, as human beings, and we are creative beings, and to be able to express ourselves in whatever unique way we want sometimes is going to be challenges along the way with that. So I love that verse, and that's awesome. So Jay, it was so fun talking to you, and I'm excited because I'm sure we've probably been in the same areas at Comedy Works or something, but I am looking forward to connecting with you um more intentionally live and in person at the next comedy thing
Well,
we're
that'd be
both at.
great. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
absolutely love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Feel free yeah, I usually post on social media like everything that I got going on and things that are
yeah.
upcoming shows and things like that. And yeah,
Y
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
do you have a website do you have a website specific or where can people best find you? We'll have the links in the show notes, but where can people
sure.
best find you?
Yeah, the best. I mean, it's a Jay and then the letter D comedy. So it's like on Facebook, just look for JD comedy or Jay Donaldson on Facebook,
Yep,
but go to the JD
perfect.
comedy one. I have a mic in my hand. And then the
Yeah,
same thing with Instagram, JD comedy. And I post like where I'm going to be, what I've got coming up.
awesome.
And you can also see stuff that I've done just by looking through my history. And then
Yeah,
other things that are a little bit more organized, like who I am, is like jaydonaldson.com. It's just my whole
yeah,
name,
yeah.
com. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to share your comedy journey and your stories and everything like that, and looking forward to seeing more of your stuff.
Great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and I love what you're
Yeah,
doing
super
with
fun.
this. I mean, this podcast
Super
is
fun.
phenomenal.
I know, it's huge. It's just like a passion of mine. I'm like, "Guys, we've got lots of time. Get out there and do stuff." All right. Thanks so much, Jay.
Thank you.
Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.